everybody, Kuro the Artist here, and welcome back to another Ben 10 breakdown. Perhaps one of the most memorable parts of the entire classic series was the Ghostfreak arc. While plotlines like Kevin, the Forever Knights, and Vilgax did have multiple parts to their story, it's pretty obvious that the Ghostfreak arc set itself apart by having concrete, linear storytelling.
It's not my plan, it's the Master's. It always was.
Meaning this is the only story in Ben 10 Classic where one episode sets up something that directly leads into the other. Things that most animation and TV shows today are definitely no stranger to. The main episodes relevant to the Ghostfreak arc are listed here. But today we're going to be taking a look at the two-part finale to see how it all pays off. Many fans, including myself, remember these episodes very fondly since they were such a big deal. But aside from Ben 10's first leap into grander storytelling, was it really executed that well? Do we praise these episodes simply because they're more important than others, or because they're actually that good? I'll admit I had some mixed feelings when reviewing them. If this is your first breakdown and you're curious about how my rating system works, there's a detailed description down below along with a link to all of my previous breakdowns. But by all means, watch this one first. I'm sure you'll still enjoy the video. Let's jump right in, but first, two quick updates. I'm excited to officially announce that the next episode of our multiversal spin-off series And Beyond will be premiering this May 21st, 2021. If you've never seen And Beyond before, it's pretty similar to the Alien World segments that the reboot has put online, but a lot more elaborate and story-based.
Good evening, extranet and multi-dimensional travelers.
If you got time, you should definitely check out our And Beyond episode on the Inner system, not just because it's relevant to this breakdown, but it's definitely our best work yet. There's a lot of animation and voice acting involved, and we're really proud of it.
Although it has been a long time.
Unfortunately, it was set to for kids against our wishes by YouTube, which is why we openly say fuck in our videos now. Yeah, we did say we were trying to get this one out at the end of February, but because of the delay, I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. Starting on the 21st, the same day the new episode premieres, we will be releasing official Horus plushies, thanks to an opportunity we were given from Makeshift. Horus has a bit of a tricky design, so we worked with them through a bit of trial and error to get this design in a place we're comfortable with. He's even got glow-in-the-dark eyes, to which is pretty sweet. Oh, and what will this episode of And Beyond be about? Well, we've heard your demands and we're happy to announce that Big Chill's homeworld is where we will be visiting next. This episode's gonna be a good one, and it'll still have some surprises, so make sure to tune in this May 21st so you don't miss the episode premiere, and cop a Horus plushie once they become available. All profits will go towards the building budget of the 5YL motion comic, so the more Horuses we sell, the more likely that'll be a reality.
But now, everyone is counting on us, so I'm not going to let them down. This is our story.
It feels great to finally be able to let you guys in on the loop about this, so I'll catch you guys on that premiere in 2 weeks. Now with that big announcement out of the way, let's go over last week's poll. That video was all about Accelerate, so I asked you guys, out of the 3 episodes we reviewed, which Accelerate scene was your favorite moment? With a 79% lead, Accelerate going fast enough to freeze time won by a landslide, and I couldn't agree more. Whenever we think of Accelerate speed, I'm sure this is the first scene that pops into everybody's head. Stick around till the end of the video for this week's poll. Pugsley and Klein tackled the first episode of this two-parter, titled The Return, which first premiered April 7th, 2007. While investigating claims of purple lightning near NASA facility, the Tennysons meet Dr. Victor, an alien in disguise that seems to be orchestrating a plan that unites himself with the mummy and the werewolf from previous episodes. So right off the bat, the very first frame connects to a different episode under wraps. Let's try to view this if we can get away with watching it on its own, since this is the first Ben 10 episode that really says, like, yeah, you need to see previous episodes. Same guy too? Whenever lightning looks like this, I can't tell if it's CG or hand-drawn. The glow effect is definitely digitally added, but they still could have drawn the lightning. And the flashlight has got some halos spilling into the background that even move in adjacence to this guy. And it's the wolf. Man, it would suck to always see the color blue, wouldn't it? And there's the mummy, which isn't the shape that he was buried in from the last episode. I don't know, they could have folded him or something. So we see at first that his howl didn't do anything. I thought the howl was gonna break off the concrete, but here you can see the concrete's breaking by itself. Maybe he was waking up the mummy somehow, and the mummy is just strong enough to break out by himself. When it first starts breaking open, you don't see the mummy inside. Not until this frame right here. But hey, 2 frames, who gives a shit? Oh, and now we get to see the effect of what the purple lightning does originally. Throughout the season, we've been seeing some side effects of the purple lightning, but here is the direct reason for it: to act as a teleporter.
Over by the inmates.
Prison bus.
This time we need to figure out our plan.
You know, I never call it out, but it really does bother me that this little dangling thing in the mirror never moves. And like, come on, that would be way too much attention to detail to even care about. But here it does, so I'm gonna shout that out. Not just shifting the image, but even changes perspective. Thank you, whoever did that.
Gwen and I can help.
That's funny, Grandpa.
Stingfly is drawn so beefy here. That's a very humanoid body. You know, this kind of does inadvertently prove that even making a plan doesn't always work, because they can come up with a perfect plan and then Ben just gets the wrong alien, so then they're like, fuck. So this is the guy from A Change of Face. That's a nice little continuity nod. Now this could literally be the same guy or just the same model. We did see Brad and Captain Shaw in Monster Weather, which didn't make any sense, so I guess you're just not supposed to think too much about it. This guy is fearless too. He's like, I'll take on this bug. That's way too dangerous, Ben. If his slime is sticky, he should just stick down the wheels of the bus and keep it in place.
Extending gyro blade.
Thanks for announcing that, as you have always done every time you use a rust bucket feature. This is a pretty dynamic shot.
You don't have to do this all by yourself, you know.
So I take it that line is supposed to be setting up the little character arc for Ben in this special. If only it would stick. In fact, that was the same lesson that he was supposed to teach his future self. It's a nice little detail how the rust bucket rocks with the weight of the bus. More magic, nice.
I meant to do that.
Max seems more surprised than proud.
I just took down a busload of escaped prisoners. I think
This is Alien Force Season 3, Ben.
No offense, but you guys were just on cleanup. Everyone knows my aliens lead.
Sorry, Bruce is messing with something she shouldn't. Come here, little boopy. Let go of the curtain. Thank you. Yeah, but remember when Lucky Girl showed back up and Ben was like,
Hey, I'm just happy to finally get a little backup.
I'm not sure if I should chalk this up to character regression, like now that Ben has been a hero for so long he's getting cocky, or just flat out inconsistent. In Season 3, he starts delving into narcissism and egotism, a lot more than he even started off with in Season 1, and I don't like it. It doesn't matter if it's in character or not, it's just annoying to watch. Like, this makes him a very unappealing person, and he's the main character.
I've covered bad weather from the four corners of the globe, and I've never seen anything like this purple lightning.
But we have.
Direct flashbacks too. This is a first for Ben 10. I'm really liking this. Just when a show doesn't have tight continuity, but then it starts making strong continuity references, it's like extra exciting because you know whatever's coming up is supposed to be a big deal.
allowing for increased high-altitude efficiency.
So I kind of forgot what Dr. Victor's whole deal is, aside from the fact he's Ghostfreak's lackey. So I'm going to try to pay extra attention to that in this episode. So far, he's just a genius scientist that works for NASA. Bruce, please don't eat my toes.
Who are you to question my work?
I am the flight director of this mission.
He's like, aw, shit.
Yes, of course.
I can see why you hired him.
I thought you hired him.
Does this mean people can just walk into the building and act like they're doing something and no one will notice? Where's the security? This is NASA.
Max Tennyson.
I like how this is really NASA and not just some made-up space program for the TV show. And a nice little detail, we're getting pictures of Max as Ben's finding out more about his history. Ben doesn't even seem to notice them though, but us as the audience can appreciate it.
You were supposed to be the first man on the moon?
Does this guy look familiar?
Oh, okay. They're pointing one out. I wonder if this guy here is supposed to be him.
Wanted to show the youngsters around the old stomping ground.
Here they're much further and we see Ben walk by the same pictures again, as if they have the same photos lined up over and over on the walls.
Ugh. Oh.
He's got the one glove on and instantly recognizes the Omnitrix.
Get rid of them.
So if this guy doesn't even know who Victor is, why is he letting him order him around?
So I never did wind up going into space with NASA.
Oh, I wish we heard that story.
I need to speak to you about your credentials.
There we go.
I am your superior.
Oh, Vic ain't gonna like that. Here we get two different transitions between the dial. From upgrade to accelerate, it just flickers, but then accelerate to heat blast, it fades, which is alright. And right here we get that meme. Yep, right here, this is that frame.
The mummy.
This was a nice surprise. I love the voice for this mummy. I'm very disappointed they didn't keep it in Omniverse. He looks so good with Ben's colors too.
Dr. Victor?
Awful big coincidence, don't you think, Ben? Ben?
Nuh-uh. They really didn't notice Ben was gone. How loud Ben can be.
How do you work these things?
Now, what's interesting about the mummy, Snarrow, I should call him, is that in the original series, he's voiced by Richard Green, but this is the only character voiced by Richard Green in the entire franchise. So they brought in an entirely new voice actor for this one alien for this one scene. So I feel like maybe Richard Green was just a friend of one of the people on the crew and they let him do it. I just don't see the point of getting the effort to have the mummy voiced by someone exclusive just for a single scene in the entire franchise, unless it was either significant or there was something going on behind the scenes. But hey, like I said, I really like his voice, so I'm welcome to it.
I better figure out what this thing can do.
Just do the things you've seen him do to you. There you go. So we've seen how strong these bandages are and under wraps. They're nothing to mess with. But the werewolf right here is able to tear right through them, kind of suggesting that he's stronger. It's like a game. Reminds me of Fall Guys. So this howl is like a targeted beam. Because the circumference of it doesn't expand, it just shoots forward.
I don't think so.
Oh. And Max is strong enough to pull on the mummy too.
Sorry about that, sport.
Another game of follow the loser.
I mean, whether or not Ben went first, they would have to check it out regardless, so.
The purple lightning came from right around here.
The brave men who so valiantly reached the heavens. MT wouldn't happen to be Maxwell Tennyson, would it?
See, when I first saw this, I always thought they were going somewhere with this. And in hindsight, it's probably best to leave whatever happened there implied to kind of emphasize Max's mysterious past, but as a kid, I was like very dissatisfied that we didn't find out any more about that event. Right here, they kind of screwed up his model. Instead of splitting his muzzle down the middle, they just gave him two mouths next to each other. What is that? Maybe Max doesn't use these moves all the time because he literally just has the one gadget of everything. Like, he's probably never getting that muzzle thing back. And so far, all three transformations in this episode have been wrong. So really, so much for coming up with a plan, right? I also remember this episode being notorious for Cannonbolt having regular looking teeth, opposed to like the basketball net of spikes or whatever. This is a good unfold animation. Bruce, please don't touch the monitor. I'm gonna have to put you over here. See, here his mouth model is correct. That's a really good looking mouth.
But you are not the only one with the power to transform.
So is this something that he can do or all Transilians can do? Because this is never explained and you kind of get lost in everything that's happening in the episode, but in retrospect, I'd really like to know whatever the hell's going on here. He's got the towers. Is this the first time we get a transformation sequence for someone who's not Ben? Well, I guess Kevin had one, but this isn't really much of one. It's just things poking out of his clothes, and he's already in his monster form. Although that shot is always super cool. And I love this pattern that goes down his neck. Oh man, look at Cannonbolt compared to Max here. He's never been this small before. Ah! Hello, Bruce. Iconic shot of the monster trio. I really like how he's got two different gloves going on here. You got a very stone looking one and then a tech looking one. Yeah, Cannonbolt does not look good in this episode at all. Not only is he super tiny, but look at those torso proportions. And Max?
Twista Combatitis!
She's tried that one a few times, right? Or was that one that like future Gwendolyn used?
Twista Combatitis!
So this is a hard detail. I certainly didn't notice it the first couple of times I watched this episode. But the snake that forms comes from the metal surrounding them. So you see the metal peel off of these structures around and then form the shape of this snake. Although when you look behind, the metal is already returned, so they didn't change the background to have a hole there. That's probably why it's hard to notice, because it's so quick and then the background just goes back to normal. But then Dr. Victor shocks this metal snake with his lightning and sends it flying back into the pillar that he's made from and makes a hole where a hole already should be. And somehow that hole stays. This is an interesting teeth set for Cannonbolt.
Him out of that spacecraft.
I'll go accelerate, stop the launch, get the corrodium, then come back here and deal with Boltneck and his pals.
That's sort of what happens.
If you run into trouble, don't panic. I'll be there as soon as I can.
Now that's sort of a Ben 10,000 mindset where that's not really oh, I'm better than all of you, so make sure to call for me. It's you guys will probably be screwed without me, so make sure I'm there to protect you if something happens. And it's like the same thing, but with different intentions. But seriously, he's already seen a future where that kind of thinking gets him, and he's already felt very differently about his teamwork in multiple episodes prior.
Am I glad to see you?
I'm already part of a super team. I mean, we got you a cake. Oh, Gwen's got some moves. Nice work, cuz. Couldn't have done it without you.
And at this point, you can't really isolate each episode individually, especially when it's doing such strong continuity callbacks. So Ben really shouldn't be acting like this, both with characterization and with plot. And you can only use his age and immaturity as an excuse so much before it just starts becoming frustrating as a fan, and we're only on season 3 of Classic. We still got 15 seasons to go. Good arm strength. I'm loving this warp effect for whatever he's doing here. Oh, a portal, of course. Like I said, it's been a bit since I've seen this one. It's one of those things that people only talk about in concepts, but I really don't think people actually go back and watch this one too much. Or I could be wrong, it could be just me. I like how here we have a combination of traditional line effects, but they still digitally suck him in. And there's the satellite from Benwolf. I wouldn't be surprised if that's literally the same shot.
Where is everybody?
Seriously.
All the overrides have been locked out. Who knew Dr. Monster was a computer geek?
I mean, that was his cover before he revealed himself. It should be, who knew this computer geek was a monster?
Maybe you should stay here, you know, just in case.
To remember someone's have to work as a team.
Point taken.
See, even Max can sometimes feel like he needs to be the one to protect everybody because he feels responsible both with his abilities and his experience. So I really don't blame Ben for feeling that way. It's a matter of, do you act like you're a jerk when you're doing it or not?
If the Corrodium is on board, we'll need these.
Even the hazmats are coming back. This whole episode is great for continuity. First correct transformation of the episode, and we even get a transformation sequence for it. Ooh, but then the Omnitrix looks like this. Oh, and the Omnitrix like this again. I do like this background, though. This background looks awesome. Ooh, he really almost tore Ben in half.
Gwen, you just became an astronaut.
It's a really good thing they had those hazmat suits.
Not my plan, it's the Master's.
Up here, there's a whole piece of the building from Ghostfreaked Out hanging because the scare exploded and all of his particles got shoved into the walls. So they literally just removed the whole side of the building. I really would have liked to seen how they did that. Probably just teleported it, honestly, but still, that's nuts.
Wait a minute, I know this place.
That line also confused me as a kid, because it isn't the same place that he defeated Ghostfreak. They just took a piece of the building. So when I saw this, I was very confused. But I guess Ben is just wrong. That's a very misleading line, because he's never been here before.
Yes, it is where you believe you destroyed my master.
See, that's wrong too. It's not the same place. Like, it's quite literally some place Ben has never been before. It's just that part of the building, but you know, whatever.
You were wrong.
Oh, this mouth was drawn very nicely. Now this was awesome. That's a weird way for it to beep. It's got like a rhythm to it, like ba ba da bow. Why did it beep like that? This frame was not cut out very cleanly. It's got thick lines, a white haze. Oh, you always knew an episode would be good when they hit you with the to be continued at the end. So part 1 of the Ghostfreak arc finale. Man, where do I start? You know, we could start off with giving the plot a 4. I feel like all of the pieces that they wove together to make this episode fit very nicely. Using Max's past to get the Tennysons into NASA was an excellent move, not only because it adds more onto the mystery of Max Tennyson, but also was more interesting than them just trying to break in like they usually have to. Dr. Victor, despite not knowing too much about him, he's an interesting character. This episode really wants to make you know more about him, and while we know that we end up not finding out much more than we know now, that's not really this episode's fault. That's kind of up to the next episode for it to deliver, so we'll get there. It's really hard to judge the plot because it's just part 1 of a 2-part story, but everything that they're setting up is done very well. You get a lot of information in this episode, and you're left with knowing so much more and asking probably twice as much, but when you're watching it doesn't feel convoluted or overwhelming. Even if you haven't seen the other episodes, it's not hard to understand everything. I wouldn't say you get lost. It's just the earlier stuff helps pay things off better in this episode, but standalone, it still works on its own, and I really appreciate that. It just doesn't get a 5 because, again, there's no real conclusion to anything that happens here. What we have here is done very well, except for one factor which I am going to dock significantly in characterization. It's gonna get a 2 because of Ben's betrayal in this episode. It's just, at this point, I can't can't keep making excuses and trying to rationalize it. You can rationalize this many different ways. I could probably think of 5 myself off the bat. But having to rationalize it is the problem. It's just at this point, it doesn't feel natural for Ben to be like this anymore. Not with season after season of him not only learning that lesson, but embracing that lesson on others.
We can still be partners. Why don't we start up the plumbers again? We'd be super alien butt kickers. We have to work together. I don't want to be your master. Maybe not alone. But if we all work together... I'm not going anywhere without my grandpa.
Remember what's important here.
We do remember, do you?
I'll need some help. You never needed magic powers to help out before.
You can use the episodic nature of this show as your defense for why Ben shouldn't have to worry too much about his characterization consistency, but as a fan, that doesn't make it any better. It's still frustrating to watch, downright unenjoyable at times, and because of what you've seen before, it just makes you feel bad because you know Ben is better than this. Like, I don't want to have to keep watching my characters fall apart and making excuses for them. I'd rather them just have a tighter foundation and not just slip into a different personality for an episode whenever it's convenient. Visuals can take that 5 though. So much cool stuff in this episode. We see more of Gwen's spells, some excellent alien battles, Victor's transformation, Max is using his gadgets a lot more. It's just exciting to see all of this stuff come together in the episode, and the animation doesn't lack. Importance, it's a 5, don't need to explain that. And entertaining, I'll give it a 4. It's a really top tier episode, but it's one of those ones where, let's say if you only have time for one Ben 10 episode and you had a choice between this one or part 2, you're gonna watch part 2. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if people wanted to watch the Ghostfreak arc and they just skipped this episode. You really shouldn't, but at the same time, once you have the information, that's all this episode really does, is give you all this information, just in a very, very exciting way. But that leaves this off at 20 out of 25. That's still an excellent score. Let's see how this story wraps up in part 2. Picking right up where we left off in The Return, Marty Eisenberg completes this story with Be Afraid of the Dark, first airing April 14th, 2007. The scare has returned, and with all the pieces put in place, wants to cover the entire world in corrodium darkness, so he will be in full power all the time. The Tennysons have their first space adventure together as they try to put an end to this plan.
Previously on Ben 10.
Our first previously in the show. So now we're really hitting hard with story.
And it ripped down that receiver you had here.
So in the episode, Ben was transforming into a LeBeau when he said that line, and the voice filter they used for Tara was on.
And it ripped down that receiver you had here.
But given how this is a recap, if you didn't see that episode, you might not know whose voice it is, so they chose to do it with the filter off. I think that's a very smart play, despite the continuity error. Even though this transformation was cut, I think that's a better transition, having it go from in his eye to out. Because in the original one, none of it actually was transforming, just him ripping out of his clothes, and you don't really need to show that. This was enough. This scene was super freaky as a kid. Every time he was near Ben, I would just feel like he could get taken over at any second.
Nothing can stop me.
See, especially right there, he's like seconds away. And background and pan down. Yep, gotta do that for gray matter. That was very lucky. So this rocket here is CG, but it's blended very well. Even the frame rate for it is good. This is probably blended better than the rust bucket is. So for some reason, the top and bottom dots on Max's suit are pink, while the middle one and all of Gwen's are red. But it's consistent. All of the frames are that way. I don't know, is it that way or are my eyes playing tricks on me? I really can't tell. Maybe I'm going blind.
1 hour high-tech bicycle.
No, I swear to God, the top and bottoms are purple, aren't they? See, look at him just phasing through all these walls, searching for Ben. That's so freaky. Like, you really can't hide. If he was anyone but gray matter, he probably would have been found by now.
Why are we chasing this little pest?
Never question Ghostfreak. See, how come he never does that to Ben? Every time he's talking to Ben, he's fast enough to just whoop. This shot is beautiful. Just this one frame alone has so much detail put into it, and it's drawn very well. No wiggly lines or anything, but it continues and pans and pans and pans. Like, look at this whole contraption. This looks like it could be something legitimate, but this is just all filler nonsense to make this place look complicated and high-tech. But there's so much thought behind this. I might be mistaken, but this could be the same guy that did the backgrounds for Ben 10,000. Yep, those are definitely purple, right? Are they? Ah.
I figured out what old Bolthead is up to. He's stationed to a transceiver in New Mexico.
That was the same sound effect that the Squire's coach made on his clipboard, which is also frequently used for the Omnitrix.
which will then spread it over the entire Earth.
They can't see this diagram, right?
Mutate all human and animal life.
That's just a side effect. Ghostfreak would be at full power all the time.
So he wants to take over the Earth, but why not just go back to Phaetos where he's the High Ectolord? That's not just an Omniverse thing, that was even in the pop-up trivia for here. So like, if you wanted to take over the Earth, sure, this is a great plan, but I don't see why he cares. Okay, yeah, that's definitely purple. So why are his color differently? If it's this consistent, then I don't know, that's just very strange they would keep that up. I do like how they're actively showing Ghostfreak looking around for Ben, and he's not just standing around. Okay, now Gwen's are, but hers were red earlier, so I guess Gwen's was the error.
Not very stylish, but you gotta love these plumber suits.
I mean, I think that looks cool. So we're about 9 minutes into this episode, and I do like everything I'm seeing, but there's a lot less happening in this episode than part 1 so far. I think it's just because more emphasis is put on the things that are happening. Like the gray matter scene was a whole thing, Ben figuring out Sascare's plan, the battle with the mummy. Everything in part 1 was very quickly paced compared to this. But both of their pacings work. They're telling two different parts of the story. But I'm just surprised we're about halfway over and the characters are pretty much in the same spot that they were at the start of the episode. See, right here, just and then bam, bam, done. You can have him right now if you wanted to, Sascare. Stop playing. He's letting him do this. That is pretty cool, though. But if they were gonna do that, they should have had Ben shoot Ghostfreak the second he saw him, because that kind of ruins all the suspense if you know that even if Sascare's around Ben, he's not gonna possess him. He says he's trying to, but I mean, is he really? Boom. It looks like Ben killed him, and this is how he reacts?
Better than the bad guy.
He's like, hell yeah. I don't know, for some reason in the fandom, everyone thinks Ben killing is a big deal. Probably because of the Ultimate Kevin arc, but I mean, like, he's always, like, thoughtlessly trying to murder his villains. If you guys have been keeping up with the breakdowns, you've noticed.
That's gotta hurt.
Not every hero is Batman. Or should I say, Batman's morals aren't the standard. So we should all stop pretending it is.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
So he's upgrading a ship's engine? Oh, he's back. And now he's got that whole thing connected to his back. They should have made a Victor figure with something like that that you can plug onto the back of him. Victor's got a really sick design.
Why can't you just be grounded like your master?
A guy who never went up into space?
I said I never went into space with NASA.
Oh, he's been around. I am a big fan of the sounds they use for the mummy's bandages.
This is my stop.
No.
And?
Oh, man.
This energy gathering effect is really nice, and it's complemented by a purple glow.
You are the only one who can hitch a ride on a rocket.
Phase in. I don't know why, it's just funny to me to see him use a computer. You know, it looks really neat, but usually Ben 10 does transitions better than that. And Mount Rushmore, gotta show Mount Rushmore.
Earth is now my domain.
But why? With humans and everything, I get it. They want power over their own people. They want respect. They want to be the apex of their species. But Ghostfreak, he's already the High Ectolord. Why does he care about here? What's he gonna do? Build an army out of the mutated humans? Just friggin' hang out here forever, comfortably? I mean, if that's his plan, sure, but I don't know. It just kind of falls short of, why is he doing this?
Goria!
You've learned some new tricks.
He's not the only one.
Now this is the best the dial has ever looked. It even does the turning effect, which is my personal favorite. But this strong glow, it's brilliant. I only wish they carried it over onto here. And wait a second. So in this scene before that close-up, he's getting ready to press the button. Here he's turning, but then back here he still hasn't even pressed the button yet. How is he getting those icons? They should have just cut out the scene of him pressing the button again. Like this. Aw, I really wish he came back too. It's really a shame this is his only scene in the whole series. So in this scene right here, he magnetizes so that he can stay on the platform, but then in the next shot, he's levitating up and down like he's floating.
Full potential.
Full potential Ghostfreak is neat, but he's not that different. Sweet. sweet.
I still got the right stuff.
We're proud of you too, Max. Of course he's hooked up to that stuff. See, this alien would be so cool for Ben. He doesn't just have electrokinesis, but he also has magnetism, and he's compatible with technology. But nah, give us forearms 20,000 times. Jumping around in space seems like a blast. I wonder if astronauts ever just bounce off the walls for fun. If this was gonna be his one scene, I'm glad that there's so much to it. Blitzwolfer and Snarrow scenes were kinda, well, they were alright, but they were pretty disappointing. Whereas Frankenstrike here is just kicking ass the whole time. I love it. I also just realized this is the first time that we see Ghostfreak use his beam.
Every minute brings you closer to becoming human again.
That's one thing that always made the classic series more suspenseful, is the fact that Ben can time out at any second. And I love it in the classic series, but definitely by Alien Force, I'm glad we got rid of it. Well, for a few seasons. Grandpa to the rescue! Oh, they made a 3D model for the rocket thruster? Has that been CG this entire time? In Under Wraps, it took a few hours for humans to revert back from the effects of corrodium, even when they were exposed just for a little bit. Also, what happens to this werewolf? They never find him, right? Is that explosion to imply that he died? Oh, and Victor. Can't keep him down. And he's got the upgrade. Oh, right, the portal.
I still say things would have gone a lot smoother if you two just let me handle everything myself.
And after all of that, he still feels this way. Even in the earlier seasons where him having this attitude would make sense, he would at least have enough understanding to have the realization by the end of the episode. I get that comes a little bit later, but by now he definitely should be getting it. This is just super extra.
Green more.
Possess him right now. Zisker deserves to lose. Every time.
Earth's defenses will be powerless against me.
Why does he want the Earth so badly?
Grandpa, now!
Grandpa again saving the day. He really is the MVP of this episode. I also really appreciate how his disintegration effect is exactly like how it was in the first time he did this. So that's visual consistency.
The ship's breaking up.
The flash when Ben turns into Cannonbolt is blue? Is that blue? I can't see colors today. The lines wrapping around him in this shot are a bit thick though.
All right. I guess we are pretty good at kicking butt together.
And it doesn't make sense for him to learn that there because he literally did save their lives right here. So him doing exactly what gives him the attitude is what helps him realize it. Not all the times the family did come into play. I don't know, Ben's a freaking mess in these 2 episodes.
And we've seen the last of Ghostfreak.
No, I really wish this meant something. So after watching the previous episode, I really thought I'd like this one more. At least I remembered liking it more. Like I was saying earlier, sometimes I would watch just this episode and not the other one, even though this is technically a 2-parter. But I gotta give the plot a 2. It seems like everything this was building towards wrapped up in the last episode, and this is supposed to be the payoff. There isn't anything that was set up before that we didn't really get till here. I guess the only new piece of information was Ghostfreak's plan, which I guess my whole motivation issue behind it is a bit of a nitpick. It still feels pretty random and kinda underwhelming. Like all of that was leading to another typical take over the world plot. A lot of this plot is supposed to center around Ben learning that his family's important and capable, and at this point it's just ridiculous to even have that be an issue in the first place. Ben never uses any of his Anur aliens ever again, including the Ghostfreak icon we see. It meant nothing. It just feels like all of the buildup was saved for part 1, so in part 2 we just have the excitement part of it. It's like now that we have Zisker back, nothing else really matters. Like, alright, we got Zisker back. Hold that one over your heads, folks. Ben's gonna have to round 2 with one of his ex-aliens. And everything else? Like I said, I am being harsh on it, but that's just how I felt this episode played out. Characterization, it's getting a 2. I don't want to repeat myself, but it's basically Ben's personality, Ghostfreak's random motivation, plus Gwen at times was a little bit arrogant too. Max was the only one who really felt like himself in this episode, and he did a lot as a character too, so Max is absolutely the MVP here. Visuals gets a 5. This is where the episode's strengths start coming into play. It's a very fascinating episode. There's so much action, so much cool stuff going on, amazing designs, amazing animation, amazing coloring, amazing backgrounds. Importance will get a 5, just because, you know, not only does this wrap up the whole arc, but this is written to be the season finale. We do have one more episode that aired as the season finale, which we'll get to next week. And entertaining can also earn that 5. This whole episode is a great ride. You're not left really wondering about all of that plot and characterization stuff, but in their own respective categories, I do stand by what I said. So that finishes this episode at a 19 out of 25. I honestly thought it was going gonna score higher than part 1. Let's take a quick look at our roadmap before we wrap up with final thoughts. This week's segment is easier than most. The NASA base is located in Cape Canaveral, Florida, and the rest of the episode takes place there and in space. This is not a planned road trip stop, so it doesn't count. Make sure to subscribe so you guys can keep seeing how crazy this map is gonna get. With how much I elaborated on my opinions in the breakdowns, a final thoughts segment would just be redundant. So instead, I'm gonna end things by announcing this week's poll. Like I said earlier, sometimes if I wanted to watch Ghostfreak's return, I would just watch part 2 and skip part 1 since I already knew what it revealed. Now, when I went back and watched part 1 for this review, I liked it a lot more than I thought I would have. And now, I can't see myself skipping part 1 anymore. Especially because most of the payoff from all the previous episode build-ups happens in that part, and part 2 is just the action part of the story. But I'm wondering how you guys usually watched the episodes. If you wanted to see Ghostfreak's return, did you guys either A, only watch part 2 like I usually did, B, make sure to watch both parts, or C, you actually did like part 1 more and would sometimes watch that by itself? Let me know what you guys think in the community tab, but until then, you can stay up to date with everything that we do on our social medias and join the Discord for some community interaction. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, and until next time, keep it fizzy.